Hey, Jason with Feral Fungi here. Just taking a moment to talk about our sourcing here. Tariffs have hit and people are freaking out about their sourcing and where they're going to get things. And to a certain degree, it affects everybody because all of us, whether we're buying locally or sourcing our materials locally for production, we depend on some things that are not coming locally. It's almost impossible, especially just with the lack of manufacturing that happens in the United States. It's a really good opportunity for us to explore and talk about why we source locally. Now it's an opportune moment for ourselves because sourcing all of our starting material, all of our raw material domestically here in the United States. And so we're not going to be affected as much by these tariffs as other companies are. That's not really the reason why we decided to source locally. There's a multitude of reasons as to why we source locally. And, there's a lot of reasons why people are distrustful of products that come from overseas. And I agree with some of them and disagree with some of the others, especially depending on the source that you get them from. There are a lot of reputable sources that are getting things from overseas. The biggest thing for me that it came down to one of them being a local economy and the other being community. And then there's an environmental impact that's associated with that as well. Those three factors are the three factors as to why we decided to source locally initially. I always like to say I like supporting the mushroom grower right down the road rather than sending hundreds of thousands of billions of dollars overseas. We have such a large blossoming community, especially in the mycological world here in the US, who are interested in getting into mushrooms, who want to stop doing whatever kind of jobs they're doing just to get by and do something that they're really enlivened by and impassioned by. And so for me, that was a huge motivating factor. How do we support local farmers in our community? And then that also keeps the money in the community and also influences the way that it impacts our economy. And I also always think about the unseen or unnoticed costs that come along with getting cheaper products. And we have pretty strict labor laws here in the United States. We also have pretty strict environmental laws, and those things are not always recognized in other parts of the world. Sourcing things locally, we're able to audit the farms, we're able to make sure we are getting what we think we're getting, we're able to look at what conditions it's grown in, we're able to see how people are treating the environment around the places that they're growing in. And so we consider all of those things and value all those things really deeply when we're picking our sources. There's also a lot of times unseen labor laws that come into action here where people oftentimes have to have a higher living wage to survive and to get by. In other countries, there's a lot of ways that they surpass that or move around that. And then there's this huge ecological issue where the material has to be packed on these large freight ships and shipped across the ocean, and there's a large carbon tax that comes along with that process as well. And by supporting and nurturing a local supply chain, we're able to offset that a little bit because we're getting all of our material locally. I'm just kind of taking a moment to think about these things today. A lot of talk, a lot of fear I'm seeing around tariffs happening, and a lot of companies being impacted by it, a lot of individuals being impacted by it. And I think we're just kind of at the tip of the iceberg about what we're going to see. I am all for a domestic supply chain. I think a domestic supply chain, I think more domestic manufacturing seems like a fantastic idea, but there has to be an infrastructure in place to support that. Slapping these tariffs on without really thinking about the consequences and without having a plan of action in place to how we're going to offset the potential damage that's caused by them feels really irresponsible. We're not going to be hit quite as hard by these tariffs as some other companies are, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to really look at ourselves and look at our domestic supply chains, look at our manufacturing capacities, figure out how we can start investing in local infrastructure for food safety and for medicine and for the things that we really depend on in our day-to-day lives to get us by. And we start that in our own way, working with mushrooms sourced from local farms and integrating some cultivation into our process as well. So just a few thoughts here today on the tariffs and on the global events that are affecting our daily lives, and glad to be on the forefront of an industry that is just blossoming in the US and the manufacturing that's happening and growing from that as well.